Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where you'll hear stories about people who think they can do no wrong and are above everyone else. My friends, in this episode, you're going to hear one long story submitted by a longtime subscriber, and it's about the time her mother-in-law felt entitled enough to take her 5-month-old baby to get her ears pierced without permission. Guys, before I dive into the story, if you have kids or if you don't have kids, let me know in the comments below what you would do if your entitled mother-in-law, not even your mother, took your precious baby and pierced their ears without your permission. Guys, I hope you stay for the story today and do hit that subscribe button to hear more stories about entitled people. Let's dive in. So, I was raised in a traditional household where I was taught to always respect my elders. Both people who were a little older than me and much older than me. This also meant that if someone was rude to me or disrespectful, that I should not speak up because it was considered rude. That's how it is in our culture, and sadly it's ingrained into my brain, and it's a work in progress to try to overcome. So whenever I'm faced with an uncomfortable situation with an elder, I usually clam up and stay silent. My husband and I had been together for about 5 years when we finally got married. He also comes from a traditional family where his parents got a lot of say in big decisions with the kids. A lot of the times, we were affected by our parents' decisions. Nothing crazy big, but it had to do with a lot of religious relics in our home, what the house number should be, how often we needed to visit our house of worship, etc. And for the most part, it never bothered us, especially because both of our parents lived in another city. Even our wedding was affected by our parents, because we had to have a special ceremony, and they just had to invite distant relatives and friends that neither of us knew, because that's how it is in our culture. It sucked, because my husband and I paid for our own wedding. Therefore, we had to pay for several extra guests that came along with our kids, which ended up costing us a lot of extra money. But we did it because it was easier to cede to the parents than fight. A lot of the time, we gave in because it was easier than battling it out, and our parents lived in another city. It's not the best way to go about things, but it's how we dealt with it. Fast forward several years, and I now have a beautiful baby girl. It was a struggle to get to this point because it took over a year of trying to be able to conceive. I chalked it up to my body needing time to adjust, because I had been on birth control for over 15 years, but I can't say I don't feel blessed and lucky to have gotten to this point. My mother-in-law never helped my stress levels with the incessant pestering of why I hadn't gotten pregnant yet, and that I needed to try harder because it was so easy for her and she had 5 kids. Okay, mom, I'll just will my body to become pregnant. When I was finally pregnant, the amount of nagging about what to eat, what not to eat, how much to pray, etc. was not fun either. I finally fought back a little right after I gave birth. Upon the baby girl's new arrival, our families had come to visit for a few days. During her visit, my mother-in-law announced that she decided that she would live with us for a few months to help us with the new baby, and was adamant that I follow tradition and not leave the house for 100 days. I already was stressed enough with having a high-risk pregnancy, with her calling me every day to give advice, and there was no way that I was going to have her live with us, nor was I going to be confined to the house with her for 100 days. My husband and I respectively declined her offer, stating that although we appreciate the offer, we'll be fine, especially because my husband would be home for the first few weeks to help out. My mother-in-law was offended, but she didn't say anything directly to me to dispute, thankfully. But she did ask a few more times here and there, are you sure you don't want me to stay with you? I also think my husband said something discreetly to her on the side, which I'm forever thankful for. He's never admitted it, but it's just a feeling I have. So the next few months were passed in relative peace, with a lot of video calls and phone calls with a lot of advice because she, quote, successfully raised 5 kids, and therefore she knows better. I normally just smile and nod and say, thanks mom, and do what I think is best for the baby. So what kind of advice did she give? Well, to name a few, do not burp the baby. The hard slapping on the back will hurt the baby. Don't give baby tummy time. They might suffocate if they put their face down. Put on like 10,000 layers of clothes on the baby since they're always cold. Shave the baby's hair because it's dirty. It was in the placenta the whole time and needs to go. I refuse to do this because I wash the baby's hair with soap and hair falls out and is replaced all the time. Don't make the baby laugh. It will overexcite them and make their heart work too hard. don't do bicycle movements with the baby. It'll hurt her spine and legs. Our pediatrician suggested us to do this because our baby was extra gassy after feedings and would cry and cry for hours because she couldn't pass gas. Don't let the baby cry. When I asked her sarcastically how I was supposed to stop a crying baby, she just told me to tell her to stop crying. Right. She also said that if the baby's tongue is stained from milk, to give her a spoonful of honey every day until it goes away. We didn't, but for those of you who don't know, there's a risk of botulism with honey, even if it's pasteurized. It's recommended to not give honey to kids for the first year. So now you have a better idea of my mother-in-law. Keep in mind, she means well. It's just that she doesn't show it in the best way possible, and a lot of her information or advice is extremely outdated. Anyway, onto the story. Both my father and mother-in-law had come into town again for the weekend to visit. Baby girl is 5 months old at this point. During the visit, my mother-in-law invited some relatives over to see the baby. While they were here, one of the aunties and kids kept calling my baby a boy, saying things like, "Oh, he's so cute. What a cute boy." One of the kids asked me why I dressed the little baby boy in pink, and I kindly told him it's because it's a baby girl. He was embarrassed, but corrected himself afterwards. I get it. Babies at that age look pretty gender neutral. It's no big deal. Well, my mother-in-law thought it was a big deal. After everybody left, she kept bringing up her disapproval of how everyone thought her precious baby granddaughter was mistaken as a boy, and that we need to give better indicators that she's a girl, such as dressing her up in more slightly girly clothes, putting a bow on her head, etc. My husband and I reassured her that that's not a problem. She's a baby. People are gonna make mistakes all the time. She dismissed our comments and continued to grumble about her disdain that if people kept thinking she was a boy, she'll grow up thinking she's a boy. Okay there, Mom. We didn't think much of it, but boy did we regret it. That same weekend, my husband and I went out for a dinner date. The first one in nearly 6 months since we had baby girl. And I was very grateful to my in-laws for babysitting, even if it was only for a few hours. It was nice because they would also get to bond with her, and hopefully it prevents any separation anxiety from building up. Upon returning home, my mother-in-law excitedly runs over to greet us, saying she has a wonderful surprise for us. I'm all excited too, thinking maybe she bought baby girl a new toy or something. She led us over to the living room where baby girl is playing on her mat and cooing over some toys. She enthusiastically exclaims, "Notice anything different?" I'm looking over baby girl's hair and clothes, thinking maybe she bought her new clothes or hair accessories. But no, it's the same stuff that she was in when we left for dinner. But then, I see it. It reflected the light and sparkled and caught my eye, and I let out a huge gasp. My mother-in-law giggles in glee because she mistakes my gasp of shock as joy. My mother-in-law squawks, "Isn't she beautiful? Now no one will mistake her as a boy." She went and took my 5-month-old baby girl and got her ears pierced. I'm frozen at this point, stuck between horror and pure anger. I lifted my baby girl off the playmat, feeling my eyes sting with tears, and touched the tiny earlobes that now have a little pink stud in their fat, soft flesh. My husband is first to react, and he just snapped. I'll never forget the fury in his voice as he turned to his mom and said, "Are you crazy?" Thus followed a long argument between the mother and son, with me silently crying on the living room floor while holding my baby girl. I was upset for a couple of reasons. 1. My husband and I had agreed to wait until she was maybe 7 years old to pierce her ears, because in my personal experience, the ears can grow at a funky rate and the holes can get lopsided. This happened to me. My mom pierced my ears when I was 3, and now as an adult, one hole is slightly higher and closer to my head than the other. And 2, I missed being there for my baby girl when she got her ears pierced for the first time. I don't remember much of their argument, but I remember my husband saying something about how she had no respect for us as people, and how she can't go around piercing babies' ears. She snapped back and said how he should be grateful for a mother that would go and do something like that for them, and then brought up something he did when he was a teenager or something, and how he needs to respect his elders. At one point, my mother-in-law asked me for my opinion on the piercings. She saw that I was crying and makes a comment regarding how I'm being ridiculous and disrespectful for not thanking her. and how any other woman that her son married would have gladly thanked her. I still said nothing. My husband, though, said everything for us and fought back hard, even as far as to say that she was irresponsible because we had no idea if she went to a reputable place, and one of the instruments they used were dirty and caused an infection that could have cost her life. The night ended up with his mom in angry tears, saying how she's failed as a parent because her son doesn't respect her, and it's a good thing she's got 4 other kids who are grateful for her. The rest of the visit was a blur, with my husband and I no longer comfortable with leaving baby girl alone with his parents. We were always awkwardly hovering near them, even at home. I never said anything to my mother-in-law the rest of the visit, except for short answers to questions, like where the toilet paper was stored. She never did apologize to us either. Our relationship with my mother-in-law was strained for a while. She didn't visit us for a few months, and the video chats and phone calls were not as often anymore. I felt like her pride prevented her from seeing the big picture, and she was fixated on making sure that everyone knew that her grandchild was a girl, not a boy. It's been half a year, and she's still not apologized to us for getting our daughter's ears pierced, and until this day, she's awkward at family gatherings and won't even come near our baby girl. My husband thinks that in her mind she's embarrassed of the whole situation, and will not admit that what she did was wrong. What that mother-in-law did to OP's 5-month-old was not okay. Even if she thought she knew best, she should have clarified with OP and her husband first, because that's not her baby. In my opinion, she was super selfish and super entitled because she purely did it for the fact that everyone thought that OP's baby was a boy. Now that you've heard the story, if you were in OP's shoes and your mother-in-law went and did that, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. And I do want to thank Melissa C for emailing me this story, and I hope things work out with your mother-in-law in the future. Guys, if you want to submit your stories, the email is in the description box below. If you missed the last episode of r/EntitledPeople, a wild Karen attacks OP after she refuses to sell Karen's daughter cigarettes. The kid's 14. Jeez. Guys, if you missed it, go check it out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.